Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again. Apologies for no videos for the past few days. Just been having a bit of a break for a few days without trying to do too much. In any case, I am back with a Magma Orb character. This time it is an Inquisitor. I wanted to make an Inquisitor and I was going to go Blade Vortex, but I was inspired to try Magma Orb by a few people in chat telling me it's pretty damn fun and awesome and all that. I've never actually played around with Magma Orb. Long story short, at this stage, I'm going to say it wrecks your frames. Now this is without Sire of Shards. I'm not doing anything fancy like that for full AoE. Just trying to make a nice, decent clear speed character with a decent movement speed, attack speed, cast speed, and then also have a decent boss killing ability rather than just shit on the entire screen with Sire of Shards. So Sire of Shards compounds the problem of frame drops quite profoundly, but I'm not doing that, and even without that, just my setup of having the Threshold Jewels and then Dying Sun, as well as my cast speed, really tanks away at my frames. Now you can see the example of the Sire of Shards guy in my hideout here. He's got mines and it just shoots them all in every direction. It really locks your computer up. This here, however, is an example of what the frames look like when you're using the Helm enchant that gives you 2 additional chains, and chains with the Magma Orb means it bounces 2 extra times. This is a comparison without the 2 additional chains, and it is much more manageable, though it still completely tanks your FPS. So I just borrowed this Helm real quick to test the FPS, and then as well with the microtransaction. So this once again with the 2 chains that goes an extra couple of bounces. There's a lot more on screen, a lot more tanking of the FPS, and then once again without the 2 chains, still with the MTX, it tanks about the same as no MTX, and I don't know what to really do at this point. My computer's not that bad, and I don't know how playable this skill is for most average folk, because mine drops plenty of frames, at least while streaming that is, and it is kind of a nuisance that'll probably get you in trouble when actually trying to do certain maps with this level of character. But besides the frame issue, if you can get over that with a good enough investment in a computer, I suppose, Magma Orb's actually pretty damn fun to play with. It does have a bit of a delay when you first throw out your first wave of Magma Orbs, which can be made a little better if you get faster projectile speed, so just the gem itself does plenty for clear speed, though I haven't been using it too much because I've been okay with it. It does some pretty good damage single target, it does some pretty good clear, and it is somewhat of a safe skill. So for this Inquisitor so far, it has worked out rather well with just Herald of Ice and sometimes Ice Bite. We freeze everything we attack, and it ends up being somewhat safe in that regard, and also has good enough DPS so far to do everything I've come across for single target, as well as some pretty damn good clear speed. So it has been impressing me more than I ever gave Magma Orb credit for, at least without Sire of Shards. So the trick to good single target for Magma Orb is basically just to have slow enough proj speed that your balls overlap on top of the boss. So for my character currently, I sub out Ice Bite and put in slower projectiles, and then you can pre-fire and overlap quite a lot of balls onto whatever target you're attacking, and that makes the tooltip effectively a lot higher depending on the amount of balls you get to overlap on a target. Now the bigger a boss and its hitbox is, the better you're going to have, because every single ball may potentially hit multiple times. Besides that, you can also get the additional chain enchant, which will only help against those really big targets, because the smaller targets will be hard to get a lot of overlapping balls on. Long story short though, it is actually not bad for single target, though maybe not comparable to something like a Blade Vortex or a Glacial Cascade in the exact same character setup. But the plan for this character was to try out Magma Orb as an Inquisitor and then have the fallback plan of Blade Vortex full conversion Elemental, just like with the Stormburst character, and if it doesn't work out, we will convert to that. But at this stage, it looks like Magma Orb is going to be fun / good enough to keep going with for, you know, as long as I can possibly do it. So at this stage, I am going to try and take it to the end game. We're still a little bit away from completing the character, still have some gem levels to get, some actual levels to get, maybe even some gear pieces to change. But at this stage, I could show you, or will show you rather, what the character has, what we're dealing with, and how we're trying to build it, in case you want to test some Magma Orb action of your own. because it is kind of fun, and I think it's sort of worth it at this point in the league to explore some Magma Orb action, though I'm not sure it's the greatest first character for the league. So there isn't anything I feel too unique about the way I built this Inquisitor. It is still a fairly general Inquisitor passive tree. Most of them for Spellcaster Inquisitor, at least on my end, are going to look pretty damn similar. You start off in, the Templar area, grab most of the stuff there, hit the Scion Life Wheel, the Witch stuff, and then of course go to Shadow for the crit goodness. At this stage I don't have Val Pact, and it may be something I get later on, but I'm not really suffering to reflect or any survivability yet, so it's not yet being taken, but it might in the future if I feel like I absolutely need it, and that's something up to your own discretion. So we do also have these two jewels for Magma Orb Threshold. They give an additional projectile and then 10% area effect per chain, so it means you don't really have to run LMP or GMP in your setup as long as you have, I'd say, a Dying Sun handy as well, because you have a default of 3 projectiles. With Dying Sun you then have 5, and that seems to be more than enough for clear speed and AoE overlap on bosses and all that. If you don't have a Dying Sun, maybe it's worth running at least LMP in your setup, because I will show my setup, and basically faster casting isn't that good at the moment for my character, but I'll get onto that in just a second. So besides the passive tree there, we do take the usual Inquisitor crap, penetrate, all enemy resists, why the hell not, or ignore enemy resists, why the hell not, bonus damage, and then Instruments of Virtue, which gets procced from our Magma Orb and our Shield Charge, so all the benefits are up pretty much all of the time. The current tooltip that we're dealing with just by itself, buffed over here, is 90k, 103k. Now that is buffed with the Instruments of Virtue, and it can go high and will go higher based off of a few gem levels and some support rearrangements, because this is mostly my just setup I've fallen into for some clear speed, and it involves at the moment in its entirety Magma Orb into Spell Echo, then into Crit Strikes, then into Ice Bite, and then into Faster Casting. Now Faster Casting is not a very good gem for me at this point. I have enough cast speed, I just haven't really replaced it because I don't feel like I need to yet. Haven't gotten anything I've currently wanted to, aside from Faster Casting. Now Ice Bite here is for the cold damage, the freeze, and then an easy way of gaining frenzy charges, which gives us some cast speed and some movement speed so that you can clear a bit faster, and it's a nice green gem that you can sub in slow projectiles over when you want to get serious and do some single target. Besides that, you could go Faster Proj. This definitely ups your clear speed in a lot of situations, because you can see you can shoot your balls further, faster, and it just makes things a lot smoother. So overall, I could get rid of Faster Casting for Faster Proj for max clear speed, and then sub in Slow Proj over Faster Proj and keep Ice Bite as a permanent fixture, though it's not the best damage gem in our setup regardless. So I haven't really messed around with path of building on Magma Orb too much at all. I've mostly been winging it. But if we just put our current character, import it completely into the setup, what I'm currently running with is about 210,000 DPS, nothing too special. You've got to bear in mind the overlaps make a big difference, and a lot of these are not at all optimal for damage. So you see dropping Faster Casting takes about 40,000, 50,000 damage away. Ice Bite, barely any damage, especially because we're not using frenzies most of the time, so I'm not including that into the factoring of the damage. So if you get rid of both of those, chuck in Conk Effect and Early Focus, all of a sudden we're at a much higher damage, and then even Control Destruction for your 6th link, and you have a pretty juicy amount of damage even on a level 19, which can go a lot higher of course. And overall, with the overlaps, it should make for a pretty good single target, but I'm just kind of fucking around with these and figuring it out as I go. By all means, try out different support gems yourself and see what you like most when playing around with Magma Orb. For me though, I think Ice Bite should be a pretty permanent fixture for at least clear speed at this stage anyway. And then there's not much else to mention on the path of building for now, but my gear, it's a lot of recycled gear from old characters. I think a lot of it is basically the Occultist Dark Pact build stuff. So a shield, you want some good spell damage, some crit, some life, dagger, attack speed, crit multi, spell damage, but damage to spells is really good on this too. So cold, lightning, or fire, doesn't really matter. You're an Inquisitor. All of those go a long way because Magma Orb does have 125% damage effectiveness. So any added damage is pretty damn good for you. A Star Conjure, you know, may as well. We don't really need resists on this build. I managed to cap pretty comfortably without any sort of helm, so bit of attack speed and crit, why the hell not? And I went with area of effect because it was really cheap and it's just a little bit of extra area without actually adding too much cost to the build. It's about 5 chaos, but the chain one would definitely be best if your computer can handle the FPS loss, and then the damage one is also pretty damn good too. Amulet that was from the old character, cast speed, spell damage, crit multi, you're looking for all of that. Life, attack speed, resists, life, resists, movement speed, and Belt of the Deceiver. We are using that because it says nearby enemies are intimidated. Now what that means is they will be taking 10% increased damage. So that's a 10% damage basically gained to all of your damage. Since the monster currently takes 0% damage, extra damage, you then apply Intimidate, and that means they take 10%. So that's a 10% gain. Although we do also have some increased elemental damage taken, so it's still fine until it gets over 100%. It doesn't really matter anyway. And then a couple of rings that I've tried to get a bit of cast speed on, so diamond over here, and then I self-crafted this thing with alt regaling. It looks kind of sad, but it's actually a fairly high DPS ring for effectiveness. You can see here 69k on our tooltip. Take it off, it's worth about 4,000 damage just as a ring slot. So that's about it for what we're doing here. I will mention Arctic Armor is one of my buffs at the moment, just for additional, well, defensiveness for the damage taken from Reflect, as well as physical damage from other enemies. Herald of Ice, that's just for shattering and for additional cold damage to your skill. And I've been currently running all kinds of MTX for it, so it's up to you to decide which one you want to run. But it kind of matters a lot because Gore Herald of Ice really fucks with my frames, so be careful of using that one. Same with purple, to be honest, so either one of these seem to be better on my frames, or no MTX altogether is actually the best, I think. Lightning eyes on the hood, by the way, look kind of cool, as you can see there. And besides that, Zeri Flask, Diamond Flask, and Warlord's Mark with Blasphemy is where we get a lot of our Sustain, our Leech, and our Mana Leech from, as well as Orb of Storms, Arcane Surge, Increased Crit, and Power Charge on Crit being our setup to maintain Arcane Surge and Power Charges in the build. So bear in mind with all those things, and yeah, I'll give you the link to the character if you want to play around with it in Path of Building yourself. It's been pretty fun so far. I think it's been worth playing up to at least this level. Definitely take it to 90 and it should be fun. Whether or not it would be amazing for Guardians, we'll find out. I think it should at least kill them. Whether or not it's good though is going to be another story. So for now guys, thank you very much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.